Imagine it's the 1970s. The UK has just introduced a law requiring seatbelts. The reaction, a lot of resistance. People said it was controlling, unnecessary, and frankly, none of the government's business. Fast forward to today, you probably buckle up without even thinking. That's not just a habit, that's cultural change, and it started with a law. So this is the question I want to explore today. Do we shape the law, or does the law shape us? And more importantly, what happens when the law tries to change us before we are ready? Let's start by thinking about the illusion of a fixed law. We often think of the law as something timeless, something solid, that rules are rules and this is unchanging, right? Some laws feel obvious. Don't steal, don't kill. We can all agree on those. But what about laws around things like freedom, identity, and equality? This is where things get tricky. In these scenarios, the law becomes more than just a rule book. It is difficult to navigate and becomes a mirror of who we are or who we are trying to become. This is where discomfort begins, but this is also where cultural change starts. So why do we actually follow laws? Sometimes it's because we genuinely believe in the why behind the law. We stop at traffic lights because we value our safety. We don't litter because we care about the environment. This is what is known as internal compliance, following a law because we genuinely believe in the why behind the law. Other times, we follow laws for the sake of obeying. We don't want to get into trouble, or we don't want to be judged by society. This is what is known as external compliance, following a law not because we necessarily believe in it, but because we feel we need to, we feel compelled by society. The real power of a law kicks in when something begins as an external belief and becomes an internal belief. So we shift from doing something because we feel we need to doing it because we genuinely believe in the why behind the law. Over time, legal rulings can reshape how we think and what we consider to be socially normal or not. It reshapes how we see others, how we see the world, but most importantly, how we see ourselves. A powerful example of a shift in cultural acceptance due to a law in the UK was the legislation of same-sex marriage. In 1988, Section 28 was introduced by the British government prohibiting the promotion of homosexuality. This created a culture of fear, especially in schools. At the time, only 11% of Britons openly accepted same-sex marriage. Fast forward 25 years to 2013, when the British Parliament passed the Marriage Act, legalising same-sex marriage in England and Wales, saying it was a right for everyone. What was once taboo became a widely recognised and accepted topic. So what happened? Did we change the law, or did this law merely help us change? That's what makes legal precedents so powerful. Courts in the UK are heavily based on past legal rulings. This is what is known as precedents. But when society shifts, the law can no longer be reliant on past legal rulings, so is forced to shift with it. And when laws shift first, it can drag cultural expectations to change. This may occur slowly and awkwardly, but eventually it does manifest itself. This clearly shows us that the introduction of new laws have the capacity to change society. But the law doesn't always work the way we would hope it would, not because the intention behind it is wrong, but because the way it is introduced doesn't always account for the way that people would feel, think, or respond to the law. Here I would like to introduce the Peltzman effect, a theory from behavioral economics, which states that people are more likely to engage in risky and unsafe behavior when safety measures have been mandated. With new rules for safety, people can often feel invincible. In other words, the safety net of a law becomes a trampoline. I want to share a quote which perfectly encapsulates the Peltzman effect for me. Bill Booth states, "The safer that skydiving gear becomes, the more chances a skydiver will take in order to keep the fatality rate constant." A key example of this in action is when seatbelt laws were introduced to the UK. After their introduction to the UK, fatalities due to car accidents did go down, yes, but something strange also happened. Drivers started driving more recklessly, subconsciously thinking, well, I'm protected now because of their seatbelt. This created a false sense of security. People compensated for the new safety by taking risks elsewhere, so through driving more recklessly. This reveals a deeper truth about how we respond to laws. If we don't internalize the value behind the law, we may comply technically, but rebel in spirit. Without a shift in mindset or culture, the danger simply moved from not wearing a seatbelt to driving more recklessly. So this new law protected the body, but not the behavior. Another example of the Peltzman effect in action was during the introduction of cigarette taxes. The goal was simple: make smoking more expensive and people will quit. And this did work to some extent. People did quit, but not across the board. For many addicted smokers, the answer was not to quit, but to simply shift what they were doing. Many began buying cheaper, lower quality cigarettes, which often contained higher levels of tars or toxins. Others turned to illicit markets to buy cigarettes, which fueled its own underground economy. This posed its own public health and legal risks. What this tells us is crucial. When laws don't engage with the underlying motivations and needs of society, in this case, mental health, social pressure, or addiction, it doesn't have the intended effect. People have to believe in the why behind the law, otherwise they will just resist it. Without the internal buy-in, the law is just a wall, and eventually someone will climb over it and knock it down. So no, laws aren't neutral. They're not frozen in time. They evolve, they push, they persuade. Sometimes they meet us where we are, and sometimes they drag us into uncomfortable places we haven't quite caught up to yet. But whether we embrace them or resist them, laws shape us. They shape the way we believe, they shape our expectations, they even shape how we act unconsciously. And while we like to think that by following laws, we're merely following a set of rules, quietly, these set of rules are remaking us. So next time you follow a law, question yourself. Think, am I just obeying, or do I truly believe in this? Because the way we follow a law, whether it's internal or external, says a lot more about us than it says about the law itself. So what have we learned today? Yes, laws can reshape us, whether we want them to or not. Thank you.